Hello, this is Charlie Winsky, the South Carolina High School League. I want to take a few minutes to walk you through the next 2 weeks of football practice, what you'll be working with next week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as well as what Thursday and Friday should look like, and then walk you through the first week in terms of your pad progression and what is going to be allowed and not allowed to help answer any questions you may have to help you all get off to the best start possible. Okay, let's start with next week, Monday through Wednesday. It's August 31st to September 2nd. All football programs are still in Phase 1.5. The only exception to Phase 1.5 is that you are allowed whatever numbers you deem necessary to hold your workouts. Phase 1.5 still applies in every other aspect. The only reason Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday will look or feel any different is that you could potentially have more than 16 persons involved in one group at the same time. Social distancing, the mask requirements, all other aspects of Phase 1.5 still apply. Reminder, active offense versus defensive drills on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week is not allowed. Okay, next week on Thursday and Friday, that's September 3rd and 4th. Thursday, Friday of next week, these will be your final 2 open season workouts for this year. You are still in Phase 1.5. You will have 2 exceptions to Phase 1.5. First exception is that you are allowed whatever numbers you deem necessary to hold your workout, same as Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The second exception on Thursday and Friday is that schools are now allowed to participate in active offensive versus defensive drills. This could be one-on-one drills or team drills. This would include 7-on-7. Again, you're in Phase 1.5 the entire week next week. On Thursday and Friday, you have 2 exceptions. Whatever numbers you deem necessary, and active offensive versus defensive drills may take place. Just want to remind you that during these drills, athletes that come inside of 6 foot of one another must wear a face covering or mask. And this would apply whether that's a drill, team gathering, or any group activity. Okay, next week, when you get to Saturday, September 5th, that is a closed period. Your closed period will run for 3 days. Those days are Saturday, September 5th, Sunday, September 6th, Monday, September 7th. No football activities are allowed. Strength and conditioning activities are allowed, provided no sport-specific skills are taught. Again, 3 days of closed, September 5th through 7th, closed period for football. Purpose of next week. Next week, we'll continue to operate under the requirements of Phase 1.5. At the same time, you'll be allowed to increase your numbers and introduce different types of one-on-one and team activities in your practices. The ultimate goal is that each coach and coaching staff will have an opportunity to see how these requirements can continue to be used as you move into larger group activities and team-type settings. When you move to 2.0 on September 8th, please be reminded that the requirements that you've been using in Phase 1 and 1.5 will now become guidelines. Although they won't be required, we will still encourage you to follow these guidelines to continue to keep your student athletes and entire coaching staff and auxiliary staff as healthy as possible. We want to remind you when you get to September 8th and even next week as your larger groups start to come out, consider spreading your groups out, working in individual groups as much as possible, practicing your sub-varsity team separate from your varsity team, and continue to practice 6 foot social distancing in all areas, not only at the practice field, but as you move into the locker room and the facilities. Again, next week, Phase 1.5, you don't have any options but to continue to practice those things. As you move to Phase 2, we encourage you to continue practicing 6 foot social distancing as you move to different areas of your facility. Now we move to the first week of practice. September 8th begins the first official team practice for football in the state of South Carolina. You will move into 2.0 on that day. Reminder, 2.0 All the requirements that you've been under for Phase 1 and 1.5 now become guidelines. As stated in the previous slide, we encourage you to continue practicing those guidelines to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. September 8th and 9th, as you can see on the slide in front of you, helmets and shoulder pads may be worn. September 10th and 11th would be full gear team practice. September 12th will be the first opportunity for teams to scrimmage against another team from another school. If you notice the asterisk beside each one of those dates, that asterisk is there because for the athlete to participate with that equipment, it must mean they've met the requirements to wear this equipment. I will go through those requirements in the next slide. Useful information for coaches as you head into your first week of practice. All players must have had 2 days in helmets prior to being able to put on shoulder pads and helmets. If you want your student athletes to wear shoulder pads and helmets on September 8th, the first official team practice, they must have worn a helmet at least 2 days between August 17th and September 4th. If they wore a helmet for at least 2 days between August 17th and September 4th, then beginning September 8th, the first official practice, they can show up and wear helmets and shoulder pads. All players must have 2 days in helmets and shoulder pads before they can go to full gear. This year, due to the calendar layout, all players must have 2 full days in full gear before being able to scrimmage. That's 2 days in full gear before being able to scrimmage. When you begin practice on September 8th, hand shields, arm shields, foam-filled, air-filled dummies can be used by players who are wearing helmets and shoulder pads. If an athlete is only wearing a helmet, they may not participate in a drill that involves hand shields, arm shields, air-filled or foam-filled dummies. This would include tackling rings. Again, air-filled, foam-filled dummies or tackling rings, hand shields, arm shields can be used on September 8th by football players who are wearing helmets and shoulder pads. Coach's reminder, continue to sanitize helmets and shoulder pads once September 8th comes. While your requirements have become guidelines, the only aspect we have to continue to fight the spread of COVID is to continue to sanitize our environments and our equipment. Sanitize the pads, balls, any other equipment used or shared throughout practices. Encourage the use of disposable cups or personal water bottles. Encourage your athletes to wash their clothing items daily. This would include personal clothing items not worn at football practice. As you move into your scrimmage season, I want to take a minute to remind each one of you of another group that is involved in football, and that's our officials. We need to do everything we can to help them get ready. 2 scrimmages this year is going to cut down their opportunities to participate, to be prepared for the first week. As you're well aware, your first game this year will be your region game and potentially impacting whether or not you're going to make the playoffs or not. We want to do everything we can to have our officials ready to go the first week. To help do this, we're encouraging you to run your scrimmages as game-like as possible. While it's not always ideal and you want to take time to teach and to learn, if you want the third party that's involved in the football field to be as ready to go on Friday nights as possible, we need your help in running your scrimmages as game-like, or a portion of your scrimmages as game-like as possible, to give them a feel for how the game runs. Cloth face coverings are going to be allowed this season for student athletes on the football field, but wanted to remind you that these face coverings should be a single solid color or have a school or manufacturer's logo on them. Face coverings worn by players and or coaches should not have any words, slogans, messages, pictures, or anything that is considered offensive. Take time to share this with your student athletes. The best practice would be a single solid color or a cloth face covering that is emblazoned with the school logo or a manufacturer's logo. And finally, some helpful reminders. Your rules clinic is up on the SCHSL website. The rules clinic will close on September the 11th. Please get this rule clinic done prior to the start of practice if at all possible. so you don't wait to the last minute and then get caught up with practice. COVID-19 course was instituted this year and is required of all coaches, and it's on nfhslearn.com. Please see that you, as well as all your assistant coaches, take time to go through and take the COVID-19 course. Check with your athletic director and remind them, if they've yet to do so, to make sure all of your football schedules, to include varsity and sub-varsity, are entered into Arbiter so that you can be assigned officials. If your football contest is not entered into Arbiter, we will not assign you officials. Lastly, as always, should you have any questions about the information covered in this presentation, please feel free to reach out to me at our office at 803-798-0120. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your hard work to this point. I want to wish each one of you best luck this year. And if you need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out and call me at our office. Thanks.